Welcome to this explainer. We are jumping right into something absolutely mind-blowing today. I am deeply fascinated by the material we're tackling because we're looking at a truly profound topic. We're exploring a detailed timeline of Islamic eschatology. Basically, we're going to map out the exact sequence of events that unfold at the end of the world, strictly based on a comprehensive source text. It's a journey through this incredibly structured cosmic timeline, breaking down the exact sequence of destruction, the silence that follows, and the eventual rebirth as described in Islamic theology.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the source material seeks to answer some of the most monumental questions imaginable. What exactly happens right after the world ends? When the Earth completely shatters and the stars actually lose their light, who is left? And perhaps most intriguingly, mechanically speaking, how does humanity actually come back to life?
To make sense of all this, we're going to follow the chronological structure laid out in the text. We'll start with the end of everything, then move into the great silence, explore the actual mechanics of resurrection, step onto the plane of assembly, and finally, look at the weight of deeds.
So part 1, the end of everything. According to the text, this whole phase gets triggered by a singular event, the blowing of the first trumpet by the angel Israfil, which literally shatters the earth and the stars.
Following this massive cosmic event, where the moon and the sun completely lose their light, the source describes a very specific step-by-step sequence where even the highest angels pass away. The angel of death, Israel, reports to Allah that all creations have perished, except for a select few. Now Allah, despite already knowing the answer, asks, "Who is left now?" And this kicks off a sequence where, by divine command, the highest angels die in order. First, the angels who bear the throne, the arch-bearers, then Jibrail and Mikael, then Israfil, the very angel who blew the trumpet. Finally, only Israel, the angel of death himself, is commanded to die. With this deliberate finality, his soul is taken simply because there is literally no one left to seize.
Moving on to part 2, the great silence. I want you to just conceptualize this moment for a second. The universe is entirely empty. Absolutely nothing remains in existence except Allah Almighty. In the midst of this total absolute silence, the text describes this highly climactic moment. Allah announces to the emptiness, "I am the all-compelling. For whom is the kingdom this day?" And because there is absolutely no one left in existence to answer, Allah answers himself. For Allah the One, the Predominant. It's a powerful quote, and it vividly illustrates the ultimate theological point of the source text. Absolutely everything in creation is mortal and destined to perish, leaving only the Creator.
That brings us to part 3, the mechanics of resurrection. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how we transition from absolute nothingness into this highly structured, almost biological process of rebuilding the universe.
First off, let's look at the timeline itself. Between the first trumpet, which ended the world, and the second trumpet, which initiates the resurrection, the text notes a gap of precisely 40 years. This 40-year span completely sets the stage for a transformed Earth. The old Earth, gone. It's replaced by a new one that is completely flat, no valleys, no mountains. It is so perfectly level that a mustard seed dropped in one corner would be clearly visible all the way from the opposite side.
But you might be wondering, how do decomposed bodies, which have turned to literal dust over thousands of years, actually come back? Well, the text introduces a fascinating concept called ajab al-zanab. It's described as an origin bone, kind of like a tailbone, or a microscopic, indivisible component, the ajaz la yatajaza. The speaker in our source draws an incredibly striking modern parallel here, comparing this indestructible foundational particle to DNA. Even if a body is lost at sea, eaten by fish, turned to ash, and completely scattered by violent winds, this singular microscopic origin remains intact. It serves as the ultimate seed from which the physical body will be regrown.
To trigger this regrowth, the timeline gives us another very specific metric, 40 days. Allah commands the sky to continuously shower rain for 40 days upon this new, flat earth, and the text specifies that this water will rise to an immense depth of 12 cubits. It deeply saturates the ground, and that's what initiates the physical resurrection of humanity. The sequence that follows is honestly incredibly vivid and dynamic. Driven by this heavy rain, human bodies begin to grow out of the earth exactly like vegetables, returning to their original forms with all their specific colors and attributes. Once the bodies are fully formed under the soil, the angels are revived. Israfil places the trumpet to his mouth.
Allah gathers all the souls, placing them inside this trumpet, and when Israfil finally blows it, the souls swarm out. The text describes them as flying like bees. They fill the space between heaven and earth, diving down with rapid purpose to re-enter their respective, newly grown bodies right through the nostrils.
Which takes us right into Phase 4, the Plane of Assembly. Humanity breaks out of their graves and gathers in the region of Sham, rising in a state of ultimate vulnerability. They are undressed, barefoot, and uncircumcised.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer terror of the environment they're stepping into. Take a look at this comparison drawn directly from the source. Today, our Earth is made of soil, we have protective mountains and valleys, and our sun is 93 million miles away, with its back to us, right? That's what makes the heat bearable. But on Judgment Day, the Earth is completely flat and made entirely of solid copper. And the sun? It's brought down to a distance of just 1 single mile, with its front facing directly toward humanity. The heat radiating off this copper surface is described as utterly inescapable and suffocating.
Because of this intense, close proximity heat on a literal copper Earth, the text details a terrifying phenomenon, a sea of sweat. The copper ground will actually absorb the sweat up to 70 yards deep, but once it's saturated, the sweat begins to pool upward. Notice how different people will be submerged to varying heights here. Some up to their ankles, others to their knees, their waist, chest, or neck. And for some, the text paints a horrifying picture of the sweat surging all the way up to their mouths, grabbing them like a rain as they flounder in it. The absolute critical takeaway from the source here is that the depth of a person's suffering is tied entirely to their earthly deeds.
And that leads perfectly into Phase 5, the weight of deeds. The entire eschatological timeline culminates right here in strict individual moral accountability.
Every single affliction on the plane of assembly is a direct reflection of how a person lived their life. The source gets highly specific about certain worldly sins. For example, if a person hoarded silver and gold and withheld their required charity, known as zakah, that very wealth will be heated and used to brand their forehead, sides, and back. Similarly, if someone withheld the charity due on their livestock, those exact animals will appear in excellent form on this copper earth, continuously trampling and striking the person with their horns until the accountability is over. The suffering perfectly and literally mirrors the worldly deed.
So, the crucial point is this exact same principle applies to positive actions too. The text is very clear that for the pious, this incredibly difficult day will not be hard. Notice the direct correlation. On a day when humanity is hungrier, thirstier, and more exposed than ever before, those who fed the hungry in this life will be fed by Allah. Those who gave water will be given something to drink. Those who clothe the poor will be clothed. Your charitable acts in this world act as an absolute guarantee of divine protection and relief on the plane of assembly.
So we've journeyed through the destruction of the universe, the great silence, the biological mechanics of resurrection, and the severe realities of the copper earth. The source text meticulously lays out this timeline, not just as a history of the future, but as a real framework for the present. So looking at the strict accountability of that day, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Knowing the exact sequence and consequences of this cosmic timeline, what choices will you make today to prepare for the assembly? Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you next time.